Hey everybody, this is Jason with Curious About Cannabis. If you followed our social media pages, primarily on Instagram and Facebook, then you've probably seen over the past couple of days that we have announced the relaunch of our Curious About Cannabis workshop series. Now, I'm really excited to finally be relaunching these workshops. And to give you some context, I've been teaching these workshops since around 2015, but I've always done them locally here in Oregon. And so they were always in person in a classroom. And then when 2020 hit, things got really shaken up, as it has been for everybody. And my company really had to rethink how we approach education and what the future of education is going to look like. And we always knew that virtual education would become more and more popular over time, but 2020 has dramatically accelerated that change. And so we spent basically the entirety of 2020 changing our entire model for how we operate, how we do business. And this led to the production of the Natural Learning Academy. Now, the Natural Learning Academy is the online learning platform hosted by Natural Learning Enterprises, which is our parent company that produces Curious About Cannabis. And on the Natural Learning Academy, you're among a lot of other things that are going to end up being populated on there. Curious About Cannabis being the flagship is always the first. What you're going to find on there are Curious About Cannabis self-paced courses, as well as access to our workshops. Now, I wanted to briefly make this video just to explain a little bit what you can expect from these workshops, what they are and what they are not, and maybe how they compare to other cannabis education experiences you might have access to. And then at the end, I've got a really special surprise for you that I hope will excite you. If you're really interested in the course, I think it definitely will. So stay tuned to the end of the video for that surprise announcement. So to start off, let's talk about what the workshop is not. So the workshop, first of all, it is not just a bunch of pre-recorded videos. I know that in the age of COVID, a lot of conferences, I've attended some of them, a lot of these virtual conferences, you pretty much pay a bunch of money and then you get access to a bunch of lecture recordings. And really that's pretty much it, just with a bunch of fancy chat rooms and virtual elements mixed in. Well, this is not that. Another thing that the workshop is not is it is not easy. So I'm a college professor. I am professionally trained in curriculum development. My Master's of Science degree is specialized in biology and education. So I take teaching very seriously, and I designed these workshops just like I would maybe design a college course. So what that means is that I expect you to put in the work. I expect you to read and participate, and to demonstrate to not just myself, but also your peers, that you do have a solid understanding of the materials that we're covering in the course. So what does that look like? And this kind of gets into what the course is. So the course has several primary elements. One is the live classroom sessions. Now, these run for a few hours once a week, where everyone in the course gets together. We have a chance to debrief, address questions. There'll be some lectures and presentations, both by the primary instructors, which is myself and Dr. Anthony Smith, who I've worked with before, is a very talented biochemist and molecular scientist who's been working in the cannabis space since 2013 or so, if not earlier than that. But then we'll also have guest instructors that will be coming in and giving you a chance to really learn from a lot of the people that you've heard me talk to on the Curious About Cannabis podcast. You'll have a chance to actually learn from them and to ask them questions. But beyond that, there are other elements to the course. Now, there are some pre-recorded educational videos and things that you'll get access to, although that's not the main focus of the course. You do get access to some self-paced learning opportunities, and particularly the participants of our very first workshop session that's coming up in March, you'll actually be the first people to lay eyes on content that's featured in our self-paced learning modules that we'll be launching in April. So you'll get access to those, but beyond that, one thing that I'm particularly excited about that people really enjoyed in the workshops when I gave them previously is that we used to do hands-on demonstrations and experiments, and it connected people more closely to what we were studying. Well, to the best of my ability, and there's a lot of different logistical and legal hoops to jump through to make this happen, but to the best of my ability, I'm putting together a Curious About Cannabis science kit that attendees to the workshop will receive that'll have a variety of different things in it that they can interact with and play with, essentially, to better understand a lot of the concepts that we're going to talk about in the workshop. So I think experiential learning is huge, and people have varied learning styles. They don't just learn from sitting and watching a video and hearing someone tell them information. Some people do, and that's great, but that certainly doesn't work for everybody or even a lot of people. So experiential learning is important, and these science kits, in concert with the live classroom sessions and everything, I'm hoping will help to bridge this gap that is so evident in a lot of virtual learning experiences that exist so far. Some other things you can expect from the course is you will also get access to a private community page. Now, these community pages you can think of as sort of a private Facebook group, sort of, but it's on our learning platform, not on Facebook. And it gives you access to a space where all of the learners can come and share information, share resources they're finding useful, ask questions of their peers, as well as the instructors. And ultimately, this is all wrapped into the workshop because there are actually assignments where you have to post certain questions and answer questions and use research literature and stuff to back up some of the things you're posting. But also after the course, you'll still have this community where you can continue to share with folks that were in your cohort or in future cohorts. So I'm hoping that'll be a valuable experience to add on to the workshop. Additionally, you'll get access to a private resource library. Now, this is sort of the gift that keeps on giving, because the resource library is where the recorded presentations from the workshop will be housed, as well as open source research papers we find valuable, recommendations for books, that sort of thing. But the really kind of sweet element to this is that when our guest lecturers come in and do presentations, those presentations get recorded and they go into this resource library. Well, what happens if you jump onto the first workshop session and have a good time and it's all fine, but then several sessions later you realize that there's a special guest you really wanted to see, and you're kind of bummed. You're like, why did I do that session? I should have waited for this one. Well, that's not a problem, because you'll have access to this resource library for life, and all of our future guest presentations that happen, assuming that we have permission to save them, will then be added to this resource library, and you'll continue to get exposure to more guest educators and more content well after the workshop is over for you. And I hope that that can be kind of our way of saying thank you, because I know that this workshop, it's intensive, it's expensive, it's a big deal. It's something that requires a lot of commitment, and for those that are willing to do the work and come out on the other side, I want to be able to give back something to you. And so this is a way of doing that I hope you find valuable. So here's the fun part. I have not announced yet any of our special guests for our courses. So what I'd like to do is, over the next 48 hours, I'm going to give you access to a discount code. The discount code is EARLYBIRD, EARLYBIRD. If you use that discount code when signing up for the workshop right now, within the next 48 hours, you'll get $150 off of the tuition. But you don't get to know who the special guests are. Once we get to Sunday, that discount code is going to expire, and I'm going to start announcing special guests as well as a couple of other little surprises about the workshop. And at that time, the tuition of the course will go back to full price. Or you just won't be able to use the discount code. So, what do you think? If you're really, really interested in this workshop, in this learning experience, and this opportunity to work with myself full-time and to work with some of my colleagues and other respected scientists and industry professionals and subject matter experts you've heard on the podcast, well, here's your chance. And if you're willing to take a small gamble, you could get it for a pretty awesome discount. So go ahead and go check it out. Go to cacpodcast.com/learn. And there you'll see info about our workshops, and you'll also see a little button to particularly to go sign up for the Curious About Cannabis Workshop Series Part 1. Part 2 won't launch until May or so once we get a cohort through the first part. But go on there. If you're interested, I urge you to go ahead and sign up and take advantage of this pretty awesome discount before it goes away. I really don't think you'll be disappointed if you do it. So with that, thanks so much for letting me introduce these new things that we have going on to you, and be looking forward to more awesome things in the future. We've got a lot of things cooking, and the podcast is evolving, and the work that we're doing is evolving, and I look forward to sharing it with you. Another aside, all of our patrons that were patrons up to 2 days ago all got free tuition to the workshop. And that's just one of the little surprises that I offer our patrons. So if you're interested in becoming a patron and giving a small monthly donation to help the podcast, so everything from Patreon goes to support the Curious About Cannabis podcast, to pay for hosting fees and all of that, and to basically ensure we don't have to deal with advertisers. So that's been really the main goal here. I don't want to deal with advertisers when it comes to the podcast. The podcast is free, it's for the public, and I want it to stay that way. And especially for anyone that maybe has trouble affording some of these other learning experiences that we're putting together, well, there's well over 60 hours of content publicly available for free through the podcast if you want to dive into it. And so my goal here is to make high quality cannabis and cannabinoid science education available to anyone that wants to learn in whatever form they want to learn in, and to get them connected to people that I respect and that I think have important perspectives and knowledge to share. So with that, go to cacpodcast.com/learn, go sign up for the Curious About Cannabis Workshop Series Part 1, and use that discount code EARLYBIRD within the next 48 hours and get $150 off tuition. I look forward to seeing you in class. Thanks so much, and take it easy. Bye-bye.